We are live with the one and only Lyden Smithers. Hello, Lyde. How are you today?
Hello, how are you? I'm all
I'm
good.
yeah. So where are you in this world, Lyden?
I am currently in my office and my house over in the Gold Coast in Australia.
Very
So
cool.
morning for me, 9 a.m. is coming. It's in your evening, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, if there's one thing about Titan, we're definitely international. That is for sure.
Worldwide.
So let's start here, Lyde. I want people to understand the level of understanding in business that you're at because you've been playing this Amazon game for what, about 8 years or so?
Yeah, 8 coming up to 9 years, I think now.
Okay, so and you and Dan started off, with your own brand, and Dan has a background in agencies and scale and things like that, and he got you in, and you guys have
Right.
been partners ever since. And I think you've known each other since you were what, 12? 12 years old, is
Yeah,
it?
something like that. So I met Dan when I was like 12, over in Tenerife, where we grew up in the Canary Islands. Dan went off to military and then went to the UK, and he was always a bit of a geek, right? So when I was out playing sports and stuff like that, Dan was on the computer figuring out how to make money, right? And through SEO and all these things. So yeah, naturally he came back from the military and went on to build this digital marketing agency. And when I moved back to the UK in 2015, I was like, Dan, what are you up to? He was like, oh, we've got the digital marketing agency. And then Dan had to teach me how to use a computer because I was no good at that. I was previously in the construction game and wasn't great with computers. So he taught me how to do that. And then we sort of embarked on our Amazon journey. And from our small office over in Birmingham, we launched our first products, which was in a pet brand all those years ago. So yeah, that's where it all started.
Love that. So then I met Dan in Barcelona slash San Diego. That's its own story in itself. And I invited him to speak at China Magic. And then on the next trip, I realized that, we worked very well together. And he said, can I bring my best mate in his UK terminology? And I said, sure, no problem. And in walked this full of life, the one and only Lyden, into China Magic, which was amazing. But one of the things that people might not realize about you, Lyde, is that you have now been involved in multi eight figures. You drive growth within brands and have been for so many years. So behind the smile, there's actually quite a lot of experience there. You've also been working with our top tier in Titan that was verified 2 million and above, and we're actually changing that benchmark to 3 million and above. And so you've been the leader there for quite some years. For I think it's been 4.5 years since we launched Titan. So you've attended how many China Magics now?
So yeah, I think it was China Magic 4 I came on, was it? I think. And then obviously we had that break in between and we did the scouting trip in April, but coming up to China Magic 8 officially. So yeah, four or five there.
Okay, wonderful. So what I'd love for you to go over is working with as many brands as you have and understanding the level of what sourcing, negotiation, cash flow can do in terms of making and breaking Amazon businesses. I'd love for you to talk about that, your experience in China, and then just what you've been able to develop based on supplier negotiations and how that affects people's businesses.
Yeah, so when I came to China, I didn't really know what to expect. What a lot of people thought, and this is what I thought. And I was like, okay, Dan's going to do this trip. He said I should come along to have a look at some of our own brands and then see what I could contribute in terms of what I'd learned. And I thought, well, I can do all this over email. Like, what do I need to go to China for? Like, it doesn't like it's a long way away from London or Birmingham where we were. But what I realized was that the level of business you can get done and the speed in which you can do it whilst on the ground in China is a complete another level. And the first time I came to China Magic wasn't to present or anything. In fact, I was very much against sort of being on stage, having a microphone in my hand, which you changed. You forced the microphone into my hand,
I do
pushed
that.
me up the stage and said, teach some shit, which I did. Yeah, we went from there in terms of like mentoring and stuff. And I realized that I had a real passion for it and helping people and people coming up to me afterwards. But in terms of actually being on the ground in China, I completely changed my mindset within a couple of days and realized how quickly I was able to negotiate a price or a change to a product. I'm like, this stuff that's been taking me 3 months and back and forward with samples and stuff, I've managed to get done within a couple of days by going to the fair and sitting at the booth with these people. And we knew that speed to market was a big thing. And we've just like got 3 months work done in 2 days and placed an order whilst on the ground. And we still had 10 days of the trip left. So yeah, like that was a real game changer for me going to China. And then that's why I've been on every China Magic since, and multiple other trips on my own or with colleagues to China just to visit factories, do my product development, negotiate better terms and better pricing, and just speed up the whole process. So yeah, like we say, that saying that the success isn't in the selling, it's in the buying, right? So yeah.
100%. So talk to me about, because one of the things you're very well known for is your ability to not just negotiate terms yourself, but you've really brought that through with others and some of the huge wins that you've helped people create at all levels of Amazon.
Yeah, so that was something that I was able to apply from my previous roles. I grew up in the sort of construction game and buying materials from different countries and importing those materials to refurbish nightclubs and hotels and stuff like that. And I've always had that negotiation side of me, and it's something that I really enjoy doing. It's like a pastime to me, negotiating and getting into the weeds and where we can sort of do it. And what I realized very quickly was that everyone was negotiating price. Like, how do I shave 10 cents, which is going to give me a 0.5 extra profit margin? So that's great. But the thing that's really holding you back from growing your business isn't necessarily your profit margin. Like, what, you're going to make an extra few $100 or a couple of $1,000 a month because you've negotiated better pricing. That's great. But how do you really grow the business and make an extra $100,000 or $200,000? And it's cash flow. And I know that from when we started, we didn't have a huge amount of cash to invest in products. And that's what always held us back. So instead of taking out loans and expensive things like Amazon lending or loans and stuff like that, I was like, well, something that what I'd always negotiated, and people have tried to negotiate with me, like, can I pay you later, type thing. So something as simple as that. And I worked on this with the great Scott Dietz, who's sort of been a mentor to me and Dan and all of us, I suppose, over the years. Worked with him on that, and I was like, well, I can test this out. And by pushing your payment terms from everybody pays before it's even shipped from China, right? And you've probably got like then 30 days or 45 days, and you got another 7 days process. You got 2 months of having paid and tied that cash up before you can even start seeing a return on it. So what I was able to do was put together a framework, test it across all of the brands we're working on, and then teach it and have hundreds of people come back to me and said, you've exploded my business because I'm able to order enough stock to not run out of stock or launch into another marketplace or order another 3 or 4 products and really grow the business. And that's always my number one. It's like, how do I create more cash flow to launch more products rather than trying to find an extra 1% in profit margin? To really scale, you need cash, and the easiest way and the cheapest way to do it is negotiating better payment terms with your supplier.
Love that. And then, okay, so give someone the perspective who's never been to China but is a significant seller. I know you work with guys, again, who are in this multi-7, if not 8 figures. And some of these people have been working, with suppliers from afar. From firsthand experience, what kind of wins have people had who actually show up and meet people directly?
Yeah, I mean, we know, and I know this now, and as I say, before I came to China the first time, I didn't realize, but we know that the Chinese culture is, and the relationship piece is a big thing. And it is in general, and we know this anyway, but we seem to ignore it now that we've over the last 10 years, like us, that we've changed our ways and we're sat behind a screen and we've got very used to that. We know people buy from people, and we know that relationships is a big thing. But some people tend to forget that. And some people have seen great success by sitting behind the screen and by email and never even been on a Zoom call, for example, with a supplier. But being in the room with them, and the fact that you've traveled the way to China and go into the factory and sit down with them and have dinner with them and have a beer with them goes a long way. And I've had Zoom call during the lockdown period, really killed me. The amount we travel anyway, but being able to get to China and try and negotiate and sort of flex my negotiation muscles, but I was unable to do that. And the results in what I was able to get over a Zoom call, yes, I might have got 30 days after shipping, great. But as soon as I get to China, that 30 days after shipping turned into 90 or 120 days because I was able to be there. There's a certain level of trust that you build while you're there. Yeah, it's just being in the room is you're able to achieve so much more. And it's so valuable to you to get over there. For the small cost, you can 10x your business very quickly, right?
Yeah, for sure. I love that. And I remember even from the last trip where people were being coached by you and they were meant to go and ask for certain terms. And they were literally like, almost like in disbelief that if they were to say it, that someone would actually like accept it. Yeah. So like and one thing I want you to actually, why don't we do this? Let's give these people some value, give them top level, because it's not just a matter of like, hey, lovely supplier that have worked with me for 2 years. I'd really like it if I can no longer give you 30% down. I'd like to make that 10 and I'd like to pay you the rest 60 to 90 days. How does that sound? That is obviously not the way it goes, right? Give people a little perspective of how much preparation.
You know what the answer to that is, right? They just say no.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, can I pay you later? No, you can't pay me later. I won't pay it now. Okay, cool. So what we do is, and I've got like a 6-step thing, and we did this on the webinar the other day, and a few people who have heard me speak about this before, is you have to present the win-win. You can't just say, give me this. Well, no, why would I give you that? Well, because they need something in return, right? So the way that we present it is that have a look at what we've done previously, how we've grown the business, show them that you're actually a credible person. I've taken this business from 0 to $1 million in the first year. It's 2.5 million in the second year. We're growing very quickly. I know what I'm doing. I'm an Amazon expert. I'm great at the marketing side of things. Cash flow is holding me back. That's where you can come in and help. Now, here's what I expect to do over the next year. I expect to be able to order $1.5 million worth of inventory from you. They get excited. That's great. So yeah, but on your current terms, I've only got the cash flow to be able to give you $500,000. And they're like, all right, okay. So how do we get the 1.5 million? Well, you get the 1.5 million by extending the terms, and there's a win-win for both sides. You can't just ask, and that's how most people, when I talk to them, like, oh, just get better terms, and they go, yeah, well, I've tried that. I asked them, can I pay later? And they said no. Well, of course not, because you're not giving them anything. So it's coming back to that relationship piece. It's building that relationship, and this can only really be done to the level that we've got it done across our businesses in person, and it's building that trust. And this isn't a supply and demand thing. We're business partners. We're going into this together, and we're going to grow together. And it's a long-term business relationship that you're gonna build a real relationship there, and friendship. Kian talks about this a lot, right? He's been to his suppliers' weddings, and some of his suppliers came to Ramon's wedding a couple of years ago. His brother. So I mean, you build the relationship, and you actually become real friends. And that trust there allows you to really explode the business. But that doesn't 100%. Happen behind an email, right? That happens 100%. In person. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like, you and I are partners, and obviously Dan as well. Could you imagine if we'd only emailed each other and like didn't actually spend time like going through certain moments and stuff? It just, when COVID hit and they only had a certain amount of supply and shipping was much more difficult, and there were all these problems, like the people that they had, real connections with, they had like a longevity of future with. I mean, obviously they're going to put those people first, and I think that there's a lot to be said of how many of our guys who had gone to China and had those relationships survived through a tough time where maybe some of the other brands didn't have that. I mean, I feel like we kind of experienced that ourselves, didn't we?
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, during a lockdown, and if there was another one, for example, well, who do you think they're going to put at the top? The brand new person saying, I want this product, but I want you to do it cheaper. I want you to do it quicker, and I want better payment terms off the back of an email or through Alibaba. It's going to be like, well, I'll forget that one. I'm going to go to Lyden because we've got a good relationship. I've already met him. I trust him. We've been working together for a while. And he messages me to ask how the kids are every couple of weeks, right? So
Yeah.
who's he going to put first when there's only a certain amount of business he can do? Is it that brand new person that he's never met, or is it someone they've got a relationship with?
Love that.
So yeah.
Love that. So we talked about terms and then we've talked about relationship. Let's also talk about just the speed of launching and also being first to market with certain products, because again, you've been working with a lot of multi-seven and also 8-figure sellers for quite some time. You've seen a lot of businesses, succeed. You've seen them fail. Like, talk to me about how important that is.
Yeah, I mean, going to China, like Canton Fair, obviously you can get so much done in a couple of weeks, right? And that's why we go every year when we're able to. But going to visit your factory is equally as important. So your current factory or any new factories that you might meet there is equally important, because and Kian talks about this a lot as well, but like being able to go in there, take a look at a product and go, okay, cool, this product is what you've got, but I want to be different. I just don't want to just a cookie cutter product and buy it and badge it, as we say, and put it on Amazon, because yeah, that worked 10 years ago. It doesn't work anymore, right? We need to create a real brand and a real product that we can put a moat around and protect it with our own design, and develop that product to solve problems that our potential customers have, beyond what the standard stuff on Amazon is, right? And what can happen there, and does happen, is you ask for some changes, then it comes back to you, you see it, you test it, it falls apart because they didn't quite get what you wanted, despite your drawings, despite your video, despite your voice note to explain it properly. It hasn't quite happened, and you're back and forward. Now, within a couple of hours, sat in the factory going, okay, cool, let me see what else you've got around. Okay, what if we change this piece like this to be able to do this? We stop gluing it, we start welding it, and they go, oh yeah, it's actually cheaper to do that. Okay, great, we brought the price down as well. But the speed to market piece is incredible, because you're able to develop that product, and even within a couple of weeks at Canton Fair, for example, you can meet a supplier at Canton Fair, you can show them exactly what you want, you can visit the factory whilst you're there, and by the time you jump on a plane to go back, you're not waiting 3 weeks on the sample to land at your house. It's in your suitcase, you're taking it home to test it, ready to place the order. You've already got the trust, and you can place the order while you're there or as soon as you get home, right? So what goes from a 6-month process from a new product to launch, which is about standard now, from develop, if you're going into development, about 6 months can be cut down to about 2 weeks. So that piece is just incredible. Like the money that you can make in those months, can obviously pay for the trip 100 times over, right?
Right? That's where my favorite quote comes in line. The most money you'll ever lose is the money you never made.
Yes, exactly that.
So saving the cost or the effort or the time of not going on a trip like this, you are then stopping yourself from potentially launching X amount of products. Because one of the things that I saw you guys do is, not just develop immediate products, but maybe have the next 5, 10, products really figured out, so that when you're ready to launch, you can just keep going. And so really what you're saving is, 10 times those 6 months. It's craziness how fast to market that can go.
Yeah.
And then also, like, I remember you guys were messing with those wallets, those metal wallets that have that magnetic thing, and they have those like credit cards, and you guys were like shooting them at each other.
Once and fire out,
yeah, they're like years ago. And what we didn't realize is that it was going to sell like $1 billion worth of these dang little wallets. And I wish we were the ones that sourced them, because you guys just kept playing with them, shooting at them at each other. But like, you never know like what you're going to find, what you're going to create, and that's just such a cool thing. And then one of the things that I was actually excited about, I was on with Norm the other day, and he was talking about, premium products and creating a premium experience for your customer, and how it can be really simple. I mean, even just tweaking the packaging, you can turn your product into a giftable, just tweaking a few little things. And then also Kian really tied into that with his product development. And we were talking about a backpack that I wanted to get for my son that was like $30 more because it had this like little phone, this little phone charger thingy in it. And he said, well, if you tweak it like this, you know, you could create it for like 10 cents instead of $8. So imagine being around you with all of your genius and all of the amount of brands that you've, you know, partaken in. And then you've got Kian with his product development sourcing genius. And then you've got a guy like Norm who has been, you know, branding and creating like really remarkable brands for so long. Like, that's crazy to me. The amount of knowledge, experience, and development you can do just being in a room with you guys. Like, that's insane.
If you put it that way, it's a pretty good team, right?
Yeah, and that's not all. We've got, you know, we've got the fabulous Georgie. We've got a whole huge team of amazing people. It looks like Dima Kubrick's going to be coming around. I don't know if he's hit 9 figures. I know he's a significant seller, but he's at least multi-8.
He'd be very close if he hasn't hit it already.
Yeah, he's a beast. So we've got Dima coming by. Barack just decided to bring his team in. So you're going to have team members from Barack's team helping with shipping on the ground right there with you. And then we also had a few other special guests, and I can't remember who they are now, but we've got some pretty amazing people coming.
I'm also taking like 10 of our team that are managing our own brands, essentially to deploy them at Canton Fair and then around the country to get all the stuff done that we do for our own brands. And they're going to be hanging out with us in the evenings and on this trip as well. And these guys come from good stock, right? Working for Habitat and things like Pottery Barn, and being buyers and product developers for years and years and years before outside of the Amazon space. So we've got a lot of experience in the room and a lot of people you can really solve a question. Go, would you mind taking a look at this? Can be solved over a drink in the evening in 5 minutes, right? That you don't necessarily have that access to constantly. So we've got some pretty impressive people there, a lot of experience that are able to help for sure.
I love that. Okay, Vlad, you ready for one of my first products? I'm opening it.
This
is my headband.
Is your
headband? Ready for this? No, there's a reason I'm showing this to you. Okay, so this is one of my original products, right? It's a yoga headband like this. And this used to take me months just to get the style right, the fabric right, the sizing right. And what would happen is it would fall off people's heads. And so I'd spend all this time and then I'd get bad reviews, right? So part of what made me want to go to China, I don't even know if you know this, is that I knew I had a really good product, but it wouldn't stay 5 stars just because it would fall off people's heads. So when I was in China and I actually got to speak to my supplier, in 2 seconds, they said, oh, we just put the grips. And I was like, what do you mean the grips? So there's this like little thing inside here, right? You can't really see it. It's like a little bit of like a rubber thing. And when you put it on your head, it doesn't fall off. It was it was literally 4 or 5 cents extra per headband to add that little detail. And it solved my issue with returns and bad reviews because it's a great headband. Like the material is cool. It's like a really good one, but it would fall off people's heads. And so I was always dealing with that. So anyway, the real reason why I created China Magic was out of my own necessity. And I found this the other day when I was actually looking through some stuff. This was one of my original models of my headbands. But you see, so something that simple took my...
Yeah, and what I found before is like, oh, these are the negative reviews we're getting. How can we solve that? And they say, oh, we'll refund you on the products you've got negative reviews on. And this is what happens when you speak with your sales rep over email and stuff, right? It's like, well, no, how do we actually fix the product? It's like, oh, well, what do you want us to do? Whereas if you go to the factory and you talk to the product developer or you pick up something else in the factory and go, well, that would fix my product. Why didn't you suggest that 8 months ago? Like, and it's like, because you're talking to the wrong person. You're not speaking to the boss. You're not speaking to the product developer. You're not walking around, and you know what I'm like for jumping on and seeing if they let me use the machines, and just quite scary sometimes.
They love you, yes.
Get my fingers off or something, but yeah, go and be able to use it. I go, okay, cool, and then I'll end up seeing another product that's there, or Graham was talking about these dusty products he found at the back of the shelf. He's like, not that product, but I can take that aspect and that feature, put it into my product, and all of a sudden I've got a whole new product or another variation to launch. So it's the things that you see in there and the bits that you can solve. I remember I
100%.
had a meat hammer, and I went out into Yangjiang, which is a little bit rural, right? There's not really tarmac on the roads or whatever. But I was out there for a couple of days, visiting like 12 factories in 2 days, pretty intense. And this meat hammer had like our logo printed on the hammer, but then that's like got ink on it, and I didn't want it to peel off and like getting the food and stuff. I was like, how do I solve this? And I was asking for months online, like, how do we change the way that we print the logo? And then when I was speaking to the boss, he's like, oh, we'll just laser etch it as well. And I won't charge you for that. And I'll reduce the cost by 10 cents because we're not using any paint. I'm like, all I kept getting on email was, no, we need to use the paint, but it's safe if you do it. I'm like, I still don't want to eat the paint, right? But the whole point was like, no, we just etched it in by laser and it's going to save you 10 cents. So I've got a better product. There's no danger to the product. And I was able to finally launch it because I was happy with it and I got it cheaper, right? So yeah,
it's crazy. So I really like, I'm going to be bold about this, but if you want to build a significant business on Amazon, like, and you plan to source physical products from China, you are really leaving so much on the table by not going there. Like, it's part of the business. It's part of being professional. You want to know the person manufacturing you want to know that it's a great place. You know, you want to get to know the people, and that it's like, you know, like I love seeing, I've been to some of our factories, and, you know, seeing the people are happy, they're in good quarters, they're being taken care of. You know, it really means a lot to them when you go by and, you know, take selfies with them. You know, it was really fun. I remember my first time going to my factory and just seeing everyone making my own products. Like, it was magical. So I do feel like it takes you from this like side hustle that for some people turn into like a main business, but unless you actually like know what you're doing on this end, you're still an amateur and I'm being a little rude, but yeah, it is. I feel like you're being an amateur if you're not completely professional in all aspects of your business.
no, you're completely right. And I shared some things on the 3-part webinar we did the other day, and we put a lot of value out there actually. So if you haven't seen it, go and take a look at that. But there's something that I sort of said was that as a team, as ourselves, and this is relevant to everyone, we can't afford not to go to China. And I sort of read through some of the stuff, like we're trying to reduce our return rate from 6.5% to 5%, right? Because our return rate is a little bit high. I know that we'll achieve that in China, and it's gonna save us $50,000 in returns next year, as well as better reviews, more momentum. We're going to gain more money, right? And then we're going to try and reduce the COGS on one of our products by 3% because we know that our competitors are getting it cheaper. With the same approach to look what we can do, we want better terms, we want better pricing, that could save us $200,000 next year. There's 3 products for another brand that we're looking for that we know will result in about $750,000 for that particular brand, just in 3 products. Now, if you add all that up for the small cost in going there, then it's gonna pay off in the long run. And that's why I sort of said on the call, we can't afford not to go to China and get this business done. And those 1.5% on a return rate doesn't sound like a lot. 3% on COGS doesn't sound a lot. And then if you take into account the terms, like we talked about earlier, like I can sell this product before I've even had to pay the balance. Like, can you afford not to go? Like, or do you want to stay emailing and hoping for the best, right?
For sure, for sure. Well, I adore you, and thank you for like the amount of energy and spirit that you bring to China Magic, and how much you care about the people, and it's just awesome. Plus, it's so fun. Like, we've done so many things. We've been so many places, like the dinners, and like going to Hong Kong, and going to like one time we had the governor of some, remember that time
Oh
that
yeah,
we went, and this
yeah,
governor
yeah.
had like this huge event for us, and we were meeting all these factory owners, and then we had to do karaoke, and they were trying to get me to sing, and I was like, please don't
It
make
was
me
actually a
sing.
weird day, but it was great fun. We went to source some products, ended up having a few beers and doing karaoke with like the governor of the state or something, right?
Yeah, that was pretty fun. So, you know,
When would you get a chance to build that relationship, right?
for
And
real.
actually, with that, what we got invited to, I don't know how we got invited to it, but some of those factories there, I'm still in contact with them now. The luggage factory, for example, that gave me the sample. My suitcase broke, and I bought a new suitcase home, didn't I? But I'm still in contact with them, and we've used them before. So built that relationship with them, found a factory I didn't expect to, and still in contact with them now.
I love that. I think we need to do a luxury Titan travel line. So
Yes.
I think we need to talk to them about this idea. Yeah, please.
Yeah, well, you're the perfect avatar to help us design the product. There you
I
go.
am, yeah, I think we kind of all are. I think we would make a really cool. We should definitely do that, and then we'll put the little wings somewhere, just like dainty. I think it'd be super cool. So, anyway, guys, I hope you can sense just the excitement that we have for this topic. And honestly, in April, Lyde went, and I was like, oh, I couldn't make it, and I realized that he was so right. You know, all the people and all the wins that they had, like none of that would have happened if Lyden wasn't like, no, Athena, we've got to do this. The Canton Fair is open. Let's go. And so I appreciate you being courageous like that, Lyde.
Yeah, that's a good point actually, because of across you and Dan across the team, it's like, I don't know if we should. Let's just wait for October. And I was like, well, I'm going in April. And the reasons behind that were like, you've got 3 years of not being able to get into China. Those factories have still been working. They've been innovating new products, and we saw that when we got there. I was like, right, what were you working on? They're like, well, we tried to design this and we developed this product and we've innovated on this. It's like, well, I'm one of the first people back to China. I got to see these and got to choose them before anybody else got to see them and see what you've been working on. I also, one of the other reasons I was like, well, it's going to be quiet, so I'm going to get more time at the booth. I don't know how wrong I was about that, but it was the biggest opening day to a Canton Fair ever. So I wasn't the only one pushing, like saying we need to get back to China, because yeah, I got back and there was a whole nother booth that whole other hall that I wasn't aware of. So it increased size by 25%, and it was the biggest opening day ever after all this time. So when some people were nervous, well, I had like 22 courageous people come along with me. I'm like, I'm not sure how it's going to be because it's been closed down for a while, but you know what? It was everything was business as usual. And I've never seen so many factory owners and employees so happy to see us, because they've been missed out on a lot of money, and they've been through the turmoil as well, and it was really good. And what we managed to achieve in April, and it will continue into October. Obviously, now we're back and full steam ahead. But I managed to get some really good terms, like 20% deposit, 80% 90 days after shipping on a first ever order. Someone I'd met 2 days beforehand. I'm good, but I'm not normally that good. Normally, I've got to work for it, get an order in first, and then build up to that. But some of the stuff that we managed to get, yeah, so just the cogs and the pricing, they were really interested in getting business done. And I've stayed in contact with a few over the coming months, and we've done business with a few people that we've met. We found something like 96 suppliers while we were there for our brands, and then all the people who attended as well. So everybody's excited for October again, and this one's going to be bigger and better than ever, I'm sure. I just can't wait to get back out there. One, for Canton Fair and seeing all the new products that are available to us, getting those creative juices flowing and seeing what we can make out of some of the stuff on display, and also sitting down and having conversations like, what have you out the back that you're not showing your 10 competitors on this line, and what can we work on? And yeah, just visiting those factories, building the relationships, and negotiating. My favorite thing, I suppose.
Yeah, I love that line. And also, I think one of the things you brought up about how you were trying to fix a product, they were saying to paint it, you spoke to the boss, and in like a second, he knew how to fix it. One of the things people may not realize is that these factories have been in sometimes for generations in someone's life, right? So they understand sort of the methods, they understand the materials, they understand, like I was speaking to one guy, you know, they did watches, and it had literally been his great grandfather's business that they just kept passing on. And so when we were asking questions, like this guy knew about watches more than anyone. I mean, it was amazing to me, his understanding of his product. And so I think that once you have that relationship, it's also really nice to treat them as the expert. And when you do that, they get more creative and they want to help you. So that's also like just a little thing I've seen you do. I've seen Kian do it. You know, I've done it myself. Like, you tell me, how could this be even better? And then their creative juices start flowing too. And they're able to show you things like what happened with my headband. I mean, it literally saved so much time, money, energy. Like, it was crazy to me the amount of trouble I had because of the fact that I didn't have those little grippies on my headband. And it took 2 seconds to fix that. So like, imagine what that is times however many products. And this is really huge. And I think part of why we care so much, I mean, honestly, between the, I forget, 14 brands that we have now, Lyde, is it? 14 brands?
14 of our own, and then obviously hundreds of other ones we're in control of.
Yeah, and then Titan, and we have an event coming up in San Diego on the 6th through the 8th of October. We have a full line of holiday parties, including London, which is on December 1st. I mean, we literally are traveling the entire world. We've got the most robust, amazing network. Like, we've got so much on our plates. Like, we could very easily be lazy and be like, you know what, let's not do this China trip. But I'll tell you, our best guys, the guys that have the biggest success stories, really, I'd say most of them had gone to China with us, and I have friends who came on my very first China trip who, and I'm not exaggerating, have exited their business for $50 million.
Yeah.
I have another friend who's a top 100 Amazon seller, and he's in the kitchen space, and he came to my first trip, and another friend who exited his brand for a couple times 8 figures. And all of those wins, like, I'm not saying that it was me, but just the fact that I had a little piece of that story by enabling a trip like this, where they were able to connect with their suppliers and do it in a professional manner instead of them wandering around the fair, which is what a lot of people do when they go. Like, that makes me so happy and so proud. So anyway, you have been so freaking awesome, Lyden. Thank you for coming on here with me. I just want people to understand it. The reason why we're doing these little lives is because until you're actually there, it's really hard to understand the value of it. So I want to bring different types of people through so they know the level of expertise, and they know that if they go with you, they're going to learn from you what has taken you all these years to develop, not just in China, but even before that. Like you were saying, you used to work in construction. You add all of that experience, things that you might have learned from other people. Like, you just mush all that experience together. And when they first walk in the fair, they can feel so safe because they're around people like you, they're around people like Kian, and it's taking their knowledge from like zero to like, I've been doing this for 10 years in like a day. And there's something pretty magical about that. So that's why we
Yeah.
call it China Magic. What?
We talked about the relationships with suppliers, and that's what I really focused on. But I left out the point, the relationships about the people that were on the trip with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I met you in China. I met Kian in China, and Ramin, and Andrew Erickson, and Ramon, and Justin Dyson. Justin Dyson ordered me a large whiskey because I was shaking before I did my first presentation that you forced me to do. He's like, "You're going to be fine, mate." And I met him. He was there as an attendee, which now he's sort of leader in Titan Network, and so like the growth trajectory there. But the relationships, I've got some of my best friends out of that one trip from China, and then subsequent trips from China. Best friends is one thing, but also people we've been very successful together in. So having that sort of it's a journey that you go on, the whole China thing, and like food and travel, and people not speaking English, for which people aren't used to, and you sort of buddy up and help each other out, and the camaraderie that's built there just builds friendships for life. But also people that in 2 months' time you're friends, and you're able to ask them, do you know what? I know who's going to know the answer to that. And that really resonates with me, because when we first started out, it was very lonely. So Dan and I were lucky we had each other, but we didn't know the answers, and we didn't know who to ask for the answers. You had some gurus like on the stage, but you couldn't just message them and say, look, do you know how to get around this? That's why we made so many mistakes. And off the back of what we managed to do in China, that's how Titan was born as well, right? Like, how do we make this like amazing community where everybody's got an abundance mindset and being able to help each other? How do we make it happen all year round? So yeah, like I owe China a lot from a career perspective, right? From becoming a mentor, speaker, and you and I going into business together, which never would have happened without China. Then also just some of my best friends in general. So I mean,
you're missing one. You're missing a really important one.
Close to my heart. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Lyden. You're missing a very important one that you met in China.
Yes, I met Georgie in China as well. So yeah, that was a very good sourcing trip for me, if you like.
Yeah,
so,
you sourced yourself the most beautiful unicorn of a woman. She's like a badass, an entrepreneur, stunningly beautiful, and you guys are like made in heaven. So you're welcome, Lyden. But anyway, yeah. So look, it's true. It's the relationships, it's the camaraderie, it's the products, it's the knowledge, it's all the things, and it's all just 10 days of your life, and you walk away with it, and you've really fast forwarded what takes people months, if not years, And then just one last comment, like, I get asked a lot about Titan, like how come Titan, why Titan, who's Titan for, why? And one of the things that we learned in China is that people learn differently at different points in their journey. right? And so if you're a beginner, you're going to learn very differently than somebody who's been, selling for 10 years. And so one of the things that I think is really special is that we also kind of separate people out in little groups, and you get a lot of attention from mentors. And that's kind of why we created these different, levels within Titan, because you don't want to mix somebody doing 3, 5, 10 million with somebody who's just gotten started. So we really have learned so much in China, not just about business, sourcing, all these things, but that's really where we learned how to serve people properly, because we really got to know them. So that's kind of another huge bonus on how all of us have been able to create this beautiful world. So anyway, thanks for coming on here, Lyden. I know it's really early for you in the morning. I super appreciate it. And thank you for all the heart and soul that you give to these people. I mean, we've got our own brands, we've got our own things, our own lives, our own children, and you take time out of your busy life to go and lead this trip and change a lot of lives. So if any of you guys are curious about our trip to China, you can go to ChinaMagicTrip.com. You can book a call with us and we can chat and see if it makes sense for you.
Perfect. All right. Thanks for having me on. Been fun.
Thanks, Lyden. You're the best. Okay, thanks, guys.
See you
We'll
later.
see you
Cheers.
on the next one with some more magical people. I think I'm going to be interviewing Anne next. She's got a killer story about her brand in China. So we'll be doing that one next, and looking forward to seeing you soon, Lyden. Okay,
She
bye,
did great
guys.
at negotiating. Actually, I was with her, witnessing what she managed to achieve in China. So I'm looking forward to hearing that one again.
Awesome. I love that. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.